Hello everybody, it's Cam Chapman. Welcome back to Horror Forever. I'm sorry I haven't posted a video in a while. If you guys haven't checked out my other videos, definitely go check those out. I also want to apologize. I'm experiencing some kind of allergies or something like that, so apologize for the nasalness of my voice. But today, we're going to be checking out one of the most iconic horror films in horror history, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Okay, so I just want to point out the fact that Texas Chainsaw Massacre is easily one of my favorite horror films ever made. It's not my favorite, but it's up there as one of my favorites. I really love how this film manages to be creepy and disturbing without an overabundance of blood and gore and stuff like that, and it doesn't rely on jump scares. It's mainly built on tension and suspense and just pretty much watching Sally go absolutely batshit insane by having to watch what the Sawyer family does. Especially, particularly, the dinner scene. The dinner scene really fucks her up, and it visually shows. And it honestly begins to fuck up the viewer, because it's kind of like you're experiencing this with her. Because the dinner scene is so surreal, it almost starts to affect you a little bit. It starts to eat away at you. Even though you know this movie's fictitious and completely just made up and stuff, it literally starts to eat at you a little bit. As does with her as well. So it's kind of interesting how the movie really plays with you. It's like you're not just a viewer. It's like you're in for the ride too, just like Sally and her friends. So you're not just a viewer, you're also a victim. So I feel like this movie just really loves to just eat at its viewer, man. And that's what I love about it, is it doesn't need cheesy jump scares or an overabundance of blood and gore. It literally is just simply disturbing and shocking. And that's all it needs, and that's all it does. And it's such a perfect film. I mean, the dialogue is kind of bad. The plot, there's not really much plot there. A group of people traveling through Texas, they stumble upon this house. It happens to be the home of Leatherface and the Sawyer family, and everything else unfolds. I mean, there's not really a super deep, intricate plot. And you know what? As far as slasher films go, that's usually when a slasher film thrives, is whenever it's not super complex and deep and fleshed out and stuff. Sometimes less is more. That's a super well-known phrase, and it definitely plays into Halloween and even the original Friday the 13th. And, of course, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which, again, is easily one of the best films ever made in horror history, for sure. Leatherface is such a complicated character. I don't understand why he's not mentioned amongst the other titans of horror, like Michael Myers and Jason and Freddy Krueger. It's always those three. And I love Michael Myers. He's my favorite. But Leatherface is the granddaddy of horror slashers. He deserves to be mentioned, at least in the same group as those other guys. I'd say even more so than Freddy Krueger, because Freddy Krueger came well after Halloween. It came 4 years after Friday the 13th, and it came way after Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So I feel like Nightmare on Elm Street is honestly, and Freddy Krueger is honestly the one that deserves the least mention. But Freddy Krueger is extremely popular, and everybody will defend him to the end of the world and back. And just like that, I will defend Leatherface to the end of the world and back. I think he deserves to be up there on the Mount Rushmore of horror faces, for sure. So, what do I give Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1974 out of 10? I'm going to have to go ahead and give it a solid. I can't give it a perfect score. I used to give it a perfect score just because I was so obsessed with the film. But I've come to terms with the fact that this film is 100% not perfect. And for that being said, I'm not going to give it a 10 out of 10 because I do recognize the faults with this film, and I understand that it's not perfect. But as far as horror franchises go and horror films go in general, I think the Texas Chainsaw Massacre stands along the top as being one of the best. That said, I'm going to have to go ahead and give this movie a 9.5 out of 10. I'm taking off literally that small set of points simply because of the dialogue. The dialogue, there's really nothing appealing whatsoever about the dialogue. It just feels so off and so weird. And maybe that's the whole point behind it. I'm not really sure. I just don't really dig the dialogue through most of this movie. You could literally make most of this movie a silent film, and I wouldn't complain one bit. But the dialogue really destroys a lot of this movie for me. So that's literally my only fault with the film, honestly. Besides that, this film's fucking perfect. So that's my review on Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1974. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are on this film down below. Hit like, subscribe to the channel if you're not already. See you guys in the next one. Stay creepy. All right.